So let us start with the first topic of this dynamics. So in the dynamics, right, first actually let us discuss what is the syllabus. So statics actually we were done. I mean dynamics, right? So the first and foremost topic is rectilinear motion. And this is also called as the simple harmonic motion. And the second one is motion in a plane, projectiles. Projectiles constrained motion work and energy, conservation of energy, Kepler's laws, orbits under central forces. So this is the entire syllabus actually what we are going to discuss as part of this dynamics, right? So here actually if you notice this entire thing is actually rather than statics actually we find this dynamics is a little bit easier topic. So everything is actually based on the simple concept. So if you are able to move one particular body in the space, if you are able to understand the motion of that particle, that itself is sufficient to analyze any kind of motion for that matter, right? So here actually whenever we wanted to analyze any particular movement, right, what we are interested in that. So that is, suppose if a particle is moving from this location to this location, then actually the aspects that we are interested in identifying the behavior of this motion is, that is, if you wanted to completely understand the motion of this particle, we are interested in few aspects. One is, the first and foremost is how much displacement. This is one question we ask whenever actually we are talking about the motion of the particle, right? How much displacement. And the second aspect what we are interested to understand is with what velocity actually it is moving. With what velocity it is moving. And the third one is with what acceleration. So with what acceleration it is moving. It is moving. Now, this part actually, if you wanted to analyze completely, this is what we call as the kinematical behavior. So, suppose if there is a particle that is moving, if you are interested to identify the displacement and the velocity and acceleration, if you are interested in identifying these aspects, that's what we call as you wanted to understand the complete kinematical behavior of that particular body. Now, the cause of this motion, it comes from the Newton's laws. That is, the cause of this motion comes from the force. So, force and acceleration are interrelated to each other. So, mass multiplied by the acceleration is nothing but the force that is going to be applied for that particular acceleration to come, right? So, the force is interrelated. Again, if you wanted to apply the force, then actually corresponding to that actually you might have done certain work. So, you have done some work. This work is transferred to the body in form of the energy. So work and energy are interrelated to each other. So you applied the force by doing certain work. So you are transferring your energy to the body, and that body is causing maybe a potential energy acquire, or actually maybe it might be acquiring the kinetic energy, right? So you are transferring the energy from your body to that particular body, right? So this is the work and energy. And then obviously when there is a movement, or if there is a force between two different particles, then actually there is going to be a friction that is going to be developed. So this is the friction. So along with this kinematical behavior, if you are interested in identifying these aspects also, this is what we call as the dynamics. And these two together call as the mechanics. So finally, what you are interested is, that is the mechanics part, so that actually you will get a complete idea of all these aspects whenever you wanted to identify the kinematical behavior of any particular body, right? Now there actually, if you notice, what are the different kinds of motion that we can think of? In general, actually, if a particle is moving from one location to another location, then actually the way you are considering is different. That is, you may consider as a single dimensional motion, or you may consider as a two-dimensional motion, or you may consider in a three-dimensional motion. So here actually, when we wanted to analyze any particular motion, the way you talk about it, one is the one-dimensional motion, and the second one is the two-dimensional motion, and the third one is three-dimensional motion. Now actually we will be associating different names for this. Rather than we talk about one-dimensional motion, we named this as the rectilinear motion. And in case of two-dimensional motion, we named in a different manner, that is the planar motion. Or this is also called motion in a plane. And then, so this is the third one, is the three-dimensional motion, or this is motion in space. Right? Motion in space. Now here actually, to be specific, as part of our UPSC syllabus, we are talking about only these two. So there is one particular case of 3D motion actually which we can map into the two-dimensional motion that we can think of. That's what is the planar motion, or actually the planetary motion and the Kepler's laws are actually still we are going to analyze in terms of the two-dimensional motion only, but though it is a space motion. So because actually there are certain aspects actually that will bring the planar motion or the planetary motion into a plane. So that actually we are going to discuss deeply whenever we talk about the planetary motion. Now here actually this motion, whenever we wanted to analyze, first of all you need to understand the definition of this velocity, displacement and acceleration. So displacement is, suppose if there is a body actually that started from here and it is moving to a different location here. Now while moving from one location to another location, it may take a straightforward path like this, or actually it may even go in this particular manner. Still actually it started from position A and reached the position B. Now the positional change, so whatever may be the path you select, the positional change is defined as the displacement. So the displacement is the straight line. Actually, if you notice, this is the shortest possible distance. Shortest possible distance from point A to point B. So is called displacement. So in short, displacement is the positional change. From point A to point B. This is the positional change. Got it? So this is the displacement. Now, whatever may be the path you select, you still consider as the displacement. Why? Because see this, whenever we wanted to analyze in mathematics, we try to consider as the piecewise linearization, which essentially means that while moving from here to here, so if you wanted to identify the instantaneous velocity at any point, so you will not be considering this straight line. What you will do instead, you take from this moment to the very next moment when it is moving. So here actually you can think of a small straight line. So this straight line, let us say this is of length dr. So this dr is a straight line. When considered very small. Right? So when considered very small, this you can treat as a straight line. Now, from this point to this point, there is a positional change. This positional change is nothing but having a displacement of dr. Let us say it happened within a time of dt, which is the change in time when moving from point A to A1, where A1 is the new position, which is of almost very closure distance or almost zero distance. So it moved from point A to A1. So let the particle moved from point A to A1 within a small time. Of dt, then how fast actually it is moving? The answer to that one is the velocity. The velocity in moving from point A to A1 is v is equal to dr by dt. Now this is a vector because r is a vector and r is actually the actual displacement vector. So r actually from here to here actually it is going to associate one specific direction, which is nothing but the tangential direction over there. Now instantaneous velocity when it is moving from here to here, at every point actually it is going to be associated with a different slope. So obviously the direction is different and instantaneous velocity at that point is given by dr by dt. Got it? So this is how actually you will be calculating the velocity. Now this r is a single dimension, actually we are considering it here. Suppose if this is the path actually you have selected. Now if you want to analyze any particular movement in a two-dimensional motion, what you will do, you will try to fit in a two-dimensional plane. That is, this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. Now let us say this particle is moved from this location to this location, let us say. Now this is the initial position vector r and this is the new position vector r2. Now this is the displacement that is going to happen when it is moving from point A to point B here. Now r2 minus r1 is dr. So dr is equal to r2 minus r1 position vectors. Right? So this is one position vector, this is another position vector. The difference of these two, it is going to be of dr vector, which is this vector. So now the rate of change of displacement is defined as, that is the velocity vector in moving from point A to point B is dr by dt. Now here actually, so if you consider this straight line, then actually it is going to be a linear motion. And then actually here dr by dt is going to give the velocity. Now the same thing actually as it is moving in a plane. So when it is moving in a plane, then actually you need to consider two different dimensions. That is, this position vector if you express as, so this is x1 into I plus y1 into j, and this position vector is x2 into I plus y2 into j. So this is the new position vector. Now at any point actually a random location, if you consider it, this is xi plus yj, then the rate of change of displacement is nothing but the r vector, this is xi plus yj, and dr by dt is dx by dt into I plus dy by dt into j. So this is the velocity vector. So this is the v vector, which is nothing but the velocity vector in a two-dimensional plane. So when we wanted to analyze a single dimensional motion, we consider in a single direction. So this is actually one dimensional. So you will be talking about only the length of this particular line. So that length may be in the forward direction or maybe in the backward direction if you start from any initial point here. Now at any random point, actually, if you consider this displacement as x, then the velocity at that point is dx by dt is nothing but the velocity vector in case of one dimension. So one dimension, actually, you don't need to consider any direction because you know that there is going to be a one dimensional motion, right? So if it is a negative value, then actually you can think of the opposite direction. If it is a positive value, you can think of the positive direction here. Now the same concept is extended for a two-dimensional motion when it is moving in a plane. So you are talking about two different points because those 2 points are nothing but the positions of the initial position and the latest position over there. So here actually this is the initial position which is expressed in terms of x comma y, and this is the new position which is expressed again in terms of x comma y. So you are talking about two different values which are nothing but the two different dimensions to identify the position of any particular particle. Hence this is a two-dimensional motion. Now the same thing actually if you consider in a three-dimensional plane, so that is actually, suppose if a particle is moving in the space, then actually at each and every point actually you need to associate that particle with three different dimensions. That is the x, y and z. Three dimensions will give the unique position in the space. Hence actually the velocity in case of three-dimensional motion is, this is dx into I, dx by dt into I plus, dy by dt into j plus, dz by dt into k. So this is the velocity in case of a three-dimensional motion. Now the acceleration is the rate of change of velocity is nothing but the acceleration. So how fast you are moving or actually how slow you are moving. So here actually velocity is a simple concept and acceleration is little complicated than that. So the rate of change of displacement is nothing but the movement that is going to happen, how fast it is going to happen that. So that is nothing but the velocity. So the displacement when it is moving from here to here, now here actually how far he is moving from point A to point B, that is nothing but the rate of change of displacement. Now while moving from one location to another location, just think of a bike. When you are moving on a bike, so at every point actually you are going to be associated with the different velocities because you will not keep a constant velocity. That is almost impossible when we are driving, right? So everywhere actually we will keep on moving the accelerator or actually reducing the acceleration, and everywhere actually we are trying to change the velocity of the body. That is the velocity of the bike actually we keep on changing. So velocity is nothing but the rate of change of displacement, but the acceleration is nothing but the rate of change of velocity, how fast you are changing the velocity. So how fast you are moving the acceleration, that is nothing but the acceleration. So here acceleration is defined as, this is dv by dt is the acceleration. See this dx by dt or dr by dt in general. So any general motion dr by dt is nothing but the acceleration, so is nothing but the velocity, but dv by dt is the acceleration, or in other words d square r by dt square is nothing but the acceleration vector. So acceleration is always associated with one particular direction because the acceleration is the responsible component for the movement. So here actually as per Newton's laws, so the second law what it says is the rate of change of momentum is nothing but proportional to the force that is going to be applied. Now the change in momentum is nothing but the mass times velocity that is changed. So here actually the force is actually dp by dt in case of Newton's law. So force is nothing but dp by dt, where p is nothing but the momentum. This is momentum. So p is expressed as p into m into, so p is equal to m into v. This is what is the momentum. Momentum is nothing but the impact. So suppose actually if I throw this pen actually, now depending upon my velocity and depending upon the mass of this particular pen, so the way it is going to hit you actually depends on the velocity and the mass. So suppose actually if you feel actually very much hurted because of this throw, then actually I might have done two aspects. Maybe this pen is having a huge weight with less velocity, or this is having a lesser velocity, this is having a bigger velocity or actually very high velocity but with a small mass. So small mass, bigger velocity, or big mass with small velocity will have the same impact on the body. So here actually mass into velocity is that factor which will decide how effectively it will hit the body. So here actually this is nothing but momentum. So p is equal to m into v. Now the rate of change of momentum, suppose actually if I take this pen and if I wanted to move this block, then actually as the mass of this block is very less and the velocity I wanted to give also is very less, the product of these two is nothing but the momentum. The momentum change is actually essential component. How much force I need to apply on this. So if the block mass is very high, suppose actually there is a big building, then actually if I wanted to move that building, whatever may be the force I apply, I will not be able to move it. Suppose actually if there is a car, for the car to move, actually I need to be applying the more force. Why? Because even to have a very small velocity, the mass of the car is very high. Hence actually I need to be applying more force. Suppose if you take bullet, so the bullet actually when it is coming out of the gun, then actually there it is very small mass, but the huge velocity is given to that small mass. So you need to apply more force there. So the product of these two are the responsible components here. Now, how much force you are giving is dependent on the change in momentum, not on actual momentum. So you wanted to change the momentum. Suppose if this block is actually keeping quiet, so there is no movement. Now if I have to give velocity to this one, I need to be applying force. Giving the velocity meaning I am changing the, so by keeping this mass, I am changing the velocity of this block. So mass is constant here, velocity is going to be changed, hence mass into velocity is going to be changed. Hence actually this is going to have an impact on the force, right? So suppose actually if we talk about one more thing, let us say there is a sand lorry. So a lorry is moving and in that lorry actually, so full of sand is there. Now the force that is going to be applied by the lorry when moving from one location to another location is dependent on the mass of the entire lorry and the sand over there. Suppose if there is a leak at the bottom and then the mass is actually keep on leaking out onto the road, then actually the mass of that entire block, that is the lorry mass and the sand mass actually is keep on reducing because the sand is coming out due to the leak. Then actually the force that needs to be applied is going to be reduced there, even though it is moving with a constant velocity. That is another case. So there are two cases I have explained. One is the block mass is constant. To apply the force, so it depends on how much velocity you wanted to achieve for this block. That is one way. Another way is, in case of lorry with full of sand, if the sand is leaking out, even though if you are maintaining the constant velocity, the force that is going to be applied is keep on changing because the sand is leaking over there. That means there is a change in the mass over there, even though we have a constant velocity. So that is why when we state the Newton's law, we state that actually the force that needs to be applied is dependent on the rate of change of momentum. But we should not say that actually F is equal to ma. So this is not 100% correct. This is partially correct. This is with an assumption of the constant mass. So here actually F is equal to dp by dt, where p is the vector. Now here actually v is equal to F is equal to dp by dt. This is nothing but d by dt of m into v, where v is the vector. Now mass is, so here actually two cases we consider. M can change or v can change. If both also changes, then actually this is m into dv by dt plus v into dm by dt. So this is the actual force that is going to be applied. Now in the first case where if m is constant, then obviously dm by dt equal to 0. If dm by dt is equal to 0, then actually F is nothing but m into dv by dt. So this is nothing but m into a. So this is one particular case where the mass is constant. Suppose if v is constant and m is changing, that is in the case of sand lorry. So there actually v is constant. Hence actually this force is going to have, so this is F is equal to, so this is v into dm by dt. So where dm by dt is the rate of change of mass. So this is again the force. Suppose if both are changing, suppose actually the lorry velocity is changing, at the same time mass is also leaking out, then both are changing. In that case actually we have to be considering m into dv by dt plus v into dm by dt. So here actually this is the entire equation for the force. Now here actually the force is related to the acceleration, that is dv by dt. Right? So the force is actually related to the acceleration, and acceleration is related to the velocity, and velocity is related to the displacement. Whenever there is a force, obviously it is expected that there is a movement, hence we have to be doing certain work. Whenever there is a work, then obviously there is a change of energy, or actually the transfer of energy that is going to happen from one point to another point. So if there is an energy change, right? So you are applying energy and then you are converting that energy into work. and the work is converted into force, and the force is converted into acceleration. Acceleration is converted into velocity, and velocity is converted into displacement. Finally, what we are looking at is the change of position from one location to another location. This is what is completely this dynamics topic, what we are going to analyze. But the case by case, actually, the scenarios are different. But finally, we are talking about only these physical quantities in the entire mechanics topic, or in general, entire dynamics topic. We'll be talking about only these aspects, right? So mass, velocity, acceleration, displacement, and force, work, and energy. That's it. Right? So now actually coming back to our syllabus, out of all these aspects, what we are trying to analyze there is, now see this here, actually rectilinear motion or the simple harmonic motion. Rectilinear motion is nothing but we have defined that as the single dimensional motion. So if there is a particle that is moving in one particular dimension, so let us consider a car moving on a straight road. Now actually there actually it is one particular straight line, on that actually the car is moving. Hence actually that is a one dimensional motion. So that one dimensional may be forward direction or maybe backward direction. So whenever we talk about one dimensional, indirectly actually it is a two different directions. One is the forward direction, another is the backward direction. Whenever we talk about two dimensional motion, then actually up direction, downward direction, left direction, and the right direction. So four directions involved together we consider as the two dimensional motion. So same is the case even for three dimensional, actually six different directions. One is the forward and the backward. So forward x, backward x, and forward y and backward y, and forward z and backward z. So total 6 different variations actually we are going to analyze in case of a three-dimensional motion. So this rectilinear motion is nothing but motion in a straight line. So that means there is a single variable for the displacement. So we start with the displacement vector. This is, so the displacement vector, let us say at random position, it is going to have a displacement of x. So in general, actually, if you want to generalize this, this is actually what we call as xi. Now the velocity of this particle is, this is dx by dt into I. So this is the velocity vector. And acceleration is nothing but dv by dt is the acceleration. This is d by dt of dx by dt into I. So this is d square x by dt square into I. So that means the velocity direction, displacement direction, and the force direction or the acceleration direction is everything exactly the same thing. So that is this direction in the positive direction. And this direction, actually, if you try to correlate with the backward direction as well, which we call as the simple harmonic motion. So in case of simple harmonic motion, what we are going to analyze is a particle is moving forward and backward like this. So from the initial position to this direction, it is a displacement of x, and this direction it is a displacement of x. So if you talk about a simple harmonic motion, is nothing but, suppose if there is a block of mass connected to a spring. So this is the block of mass. Now this block of mass connected to the spring, and let us say the spring constant is, let us say, k. So spring constant is nothing but the displacement change, or actually the spring length change for the applied force of F. So how much force is responsible for how much displacement? That is, F is directly proportional to x. We know that the change in this particular length is dependent on this force. If you apply more force, then so for the compression, if you apply more force, then actually more length is going to be compressed. If you apply less force, then actually less length is going to be compressed by the spring. Then actually F is directly proportional to x. Now here actually, if you notice, if you apply the force in this direction, right, so x is going to be reduced. Now here actually F is directly proportional to x. This can be replaced with F is equal to kx. This k is nothing but F by x. F by x is nothing but the k, which is nothing but the spring constant. So F by x, force per unit length. So if you wanted to compress a length of 1 meter, how much force you are applying is nothing but the force per unit length, which we call as the spring constant there. So F is equal to kx, is the k is the spring constant over there. Now here actually when we try to apply the force on this, it is going to be compressing. Now there will be a counter force, that is the opposite force is going to be developed by this particular spring because you are compressing it. Whenever you leave this force, then actually it automatically throws away from that initial position. So if you apply initial force and leave it, what is going to happen is, starting from this initial position, this block of mass is moving in this direction and coming back to this direction, moving in this direction and coming back to this direction. This process will keep on continuous. For the case of ideal case, here actually you don't consider any kind of friction. Then actually once if you give the initial moment, then it is going to have the compression and expansion like this keeps on moves. So this kind of motion is nothing but the simple harmonic motion. Now here if you notice, this is one particular straight line. On this particular straight line, there is a forward movement and there is a backward movement also. And from the initial point, it is keep on moving here and there like this. So this kind of motion is called as a simple harmonic motion. And this is one particular case of rectilinear motion. So rectilinear motion may be only forward direction or only backward direction. So if both are involved, forward and backward with equal intentions, then actually we treat that as the simple harmonic motion. So again, this rectilinear motion and the simple harmonic motion we can classify as the single dimensional motion. And the second one is motion in a plane. Motion in a plane and projectiles also we can combine into a single motion called the two-dimensional plane. So two-dimensional planar motion where the particle is moving in a plane. So plane can have different shapes, maybe circular motion, maybe projectile motion, or maybe any kind of motion which is moving in a plane, or a random motion in a plane. So everything is actually you can treat as the planar motion. For example, suppose if you consider the circular motion, let us say this particle is moving in this particular direction. So this is the initial position and this is the origin O and this is the radial distance R, and this particle is keep on moving in a circular motion like this. Now at everywhere actually it is going to have the tangential direction as the velocity direction. Now here actually when the particle is moving in a circle, then actually at different locations it is going to be associated with different positions. So that positions actually, if you consider in the Cartesian coordinate system, you will be talking about x comma y position. But it is advantageous to mention in case of polar coordinates for the circular motion. So polar coordinates analysis we are going to do it here. So here actually if you notice, again we are talking about only the two-dimensional motion, but the way you are going to analyze actually you are adapting the polar coordinate system, but the analysis is only two-dimensional motion. So here actually the polar Cartesian coordinates actually is convenient if the particle is moving on straight lines, but polar coordinates are convenient if it is moving in with certain angles. So here actually the angle is keep on changing, then actually we tried analyzing the domain. So the domain of analysis is going to be now it is the polar coordinates. So other than that there is no other difference. Again in polar coordinates there will be two different directions. One is the radial direction and another is transverse direction. So that is, suppose see this is what is called as the radial direction. Radially away from one particular point is nothing but the radial direction. And the transverse direction is always in the 90 degrees to the radial direction in the increasing direction of theta. So this is the increasing direction of theta because this horizontal line actually started as the initial line and this point we call as the pole. So this pole actually starting from the pole, if you draw the radial and that radial is keep on moving in a increasing direction of theta, that is what we call as the transverse direction. So this is transverse direction, right? So transverse direction. So these are the new words actually that we are going to use to analyze same two-dimensional motion. So in case of two-dimensional motion, you may analyze with Cartesian coordinates or you may analyze with the polar coordinates. That depends on your convenience. So most probably we'll be analyzing with the help of this two-dimensional motion in polar coordinates. Here actually one concept what you need to understand is whenever we are talking about a particle movement in a plane, we are talking about four different directions. Those four directions are even in a plane. So this is x-axis and this is y-axis. Let us say this particle is moving in this particular direction. Now at any random location, if you consider it, this random location, let us say this point is P. Now starting from the origin, if you draw a straight line to that particular point, straight to the like this, and this is given one name, so this is called as the radial direction. This is called as the radial direction. Now a direction which is always perpendicular to the radial direction in the increasing direction of R is called as the transverse direction. So this is the transverse direction. Because in the problem statements actually he is going to state, so find the velocity in the transverse direction or find the velocity in the radial direction, find the velocity in the tangential direction, find the velocity in the normal direction. So that is how the questions are going to be. Now here actually this is the curve of movement. So actually on this curve actually the particle is actually moving. Now, if you draw a tangent to this point at this location, then actually this is the direction of the tangent at this particular point. Now, this directional velocity is nothing but the tangential velocity. So this is the tangential velocity. A direction which is perpendicular to the tangent. So this is the normal direction. So these are the words actually that we are going to analyze in case of the particle movement. So the direction when we need to be associated over there. So tangential direction, normal direction, radial direction and transverse direction. So here actually in case of circular motion, what is going to happen is these directions are overlapping each other. That is, suppose if you talk about this direction, this is called as the radial direction. And if you try to draw a tangent at this particular point, so this is the tangential direction. So the tangential direction and the transverse directions are same here. Tangential and transverse. Are same. Here radial and normal directions are same. So here in this case actually it is different. It is a general motion. So in this general motion actually the radial direction and the transverse direction and tangential direction and the normal directions are completely different. But here actually if you notice in case of circular motion, the transverse direction and the tangential directions are one and the same, and the normal direction and the radial directions are one and the same. So radial is nothing but it comes in the polar coordinate system. So when we define the polar coordinate system, the way we define is, so whenever we wanted to define any coordinate system, so we need to start with origin where the location is 0, 0. In case of Cartesian coordinate system, this is what is 0, 0 location. So this is the x direction and this is the y direction we have given. And starting this particular point, actually we started with x is 0 and y is 0. But the same point, let us say this is one point if you wanted to represent, and this point is represented as x comma y in case of Cartesian coordinate system, which says that to reach this point from this origin, you need to travel in the direction of x for a distance of x, and you need to travel in the direction of y for a distance of y. Hence, you will be reaching from point A to point B. Now, the same concept actually, if you wanted to express in polar coordinates, so what we do is rather than the perpendicular axis, so here actually x-axis and y-axis are actually two perpendicular lines. So in case of polar coordinate system, what we do is actually we start with something called the initial line, which is nothing but the horizontal line. So this is named as the initial line. And you need to start somewhere. That point actually, this is the point, let us say, we are starting to analyze the particle behavior from this particular point, which we treat this point as the pole. So pole and the initial lines are the reference points in case of polar coordinates. So pole is actually a single point on the initial line. Now from here onwards actually we will try to analyze it. Suppose actually if you wanted to reach this particular point, starting from this particular point, then actually you are drawing one particular straight line straight to the point, and this line is called as the radial line. So this is the radial line. So this length is called as the radius. So this is the radial line, and then actually this radial line, starting from the initial line, actually you start measuring the angle. So this is theta. So this theta and this radial length will give the exact location of this point starting from this point. So if I say that actually go for a distance of 10 meters by taking an angle from the initial line, so then actually you will be able to reach that point. So if I state that way, by taking an angle of 30 degrees, travel for a distance of 10 meters, you will be reaching that point. So that statement is sufficient enough to exactly convey starting from this point how to reach to this point. So this way we can analyze the same point, whatever we have expressed in terms of Cartesian coordinates here, the same thing actually can even be expressed with this particular manner also. This is what is called as the polar coordinates. So in case of polar coordinates, initial line, pole are the starting points. Now from then onwards actually there are two different directions. It's not like x-axis and y-axis. It is like initial line and the angle. So from the initial line actually you started measuring the angle and you are taking the line length. So here actually if you wanted to express this point in polar coordinates, what the way you need to express is you need to mention about the angle and you need to mention about the length. So take from the initial length, take an angle of 30 degrees, travel for a distance of 10 meters. That is how you are talking about. Hence actually theta and r are the coordinates in case of polar coordinate system. Now here actually when we talk about, as the coordinate system variables are changed here, when we talk about the velocity, now here actually x directional velocity and y directional velocity we are going to talk about. But here in this case, we need to be talk about in the radial direction. So this is the direction of the velocity, or perpendicular to radial direction, which is nothing but the incremented direction of this theta, which is called as the transverse direction. So radial directional velocity and transverse directional velocity are the variables what we are going to use in case of analyzing the particle behavior in case of 2 dimensions. But in case of Cartesian coordinates, we are talking about only the x directional velocity and y directional velocity, x directional acceleration and y directional acceleration. So here actually r direction or the radial directional velocity and acceleration and transverse directional velocity and acceleration are the essential points what we need to be talking about. Here actually when we are analyzing in a plane, then in that plane actually most probably we will be using this polar coordinate system, not the Cartesian coordinate system. That is why we feel a little bit difficulty. So that's why we need to understand more on this polar coordinate system, right? Now, whenever we are talking about the project, so the third concept is the projectiles. Projectiles is nothing but, suppose if you throw this pen, then actually it is going to assume one parabolic path, and that parabolic path is called as the projectile motion. So here actually, even though the particle is moving in space, we still treat as a planar motion only. Why? Because see this, suppose actually if I throw this pen in this direction, it is going to have a parabolic path like this. Now here actually this vertical line I treat as the x-axis, y-axis, and starting from this point and then it dropped at somewhere. Now actually if I draw a straight line which is exactly perpendicular to this vertical line, and this line is nothing but the x-axis. Now here actually whenever we are talking about the projectiles, I started projecting from here and then actually dropped here. Now this is the projectile. Now wherever it is dropping, this point I will identify. Wherever it is starting, this point I will identify, and then actually I will draw a straight line like this. This I call as x-axis, and this I call as the y-axis. Now on the xy plane, it is going to have the parabolic path. Suppose actually I throw the particle in this manner. Earlier actually I throw it in this manner. Now here actually this is the x-axis I am talking about. Now if I throw in this manner, then actually this is the x-axis I talk about, and this is the y-axis I talk about. Now this is the parabolic path again. So now as you are shifting the x-axis, depending upon your convenience, wherever the particle is dropped, that itself actually you consider as the ending point and then try to draw the x-axis over there. Hence actually the projectile motion can always be analyzed in a planar motion, though it is moving in a space. Got it or not? I hope you understood that. So projectile actually can always treat as a parabola which is in a plane. So we don't talk about the space because you can simplify the analysis by considering it as a plane, though it is moving in a space. So that is the projectile motion what we are talking about. And then actually circular motion, projectile motion, both together comes under the category of the planar motion only. And the third one is, that is the constrained motion. Constrained motion is, suppose actually if you tie up a thread to the stone and then actually try to rotate it. So you tie up your thread to the stone and try to rotate it, you are constraining that particle to move only in a circular fashion. So here actually you are not allowing the particle to go out of control. So you are constraining to move in a particular fashion, and that is what we call as the constrained motion. So here actually suppose there is a table here, and then actually on this table there is a stone here, and then actually I am trying to move it. Now I am constraining this particle to move only on this particular table. It won't go above the table or it won't come down also. Suppose if I take a circular plate like this, and then there is a particle actually if I try to move it, then I am constraining this particle to move tangential to this particular shape. So here actually I am constraining it. I am not allowing to move like this. So this is actually ruled out because actually I am constraining to move in only one particular fashion. This kind of analysis, whether it is a single line motion or whether it may be a two-dimensional motion, still actually this is treated as the constrained motion. So this is constrained motion. As you are constraining, the motion analysis is exactly the same, but the things that you need to consider is the reactional forces that are going to be applied on this along with our external force on this. So on this particle we are applying external force so that the particle is moving. Now along with that there are some certain constraints I have associated. I am not allowing in one particular direction, hence actually it is going to throw some reactional force over there. So that also you need to consider while analyzing this kind of behavior, which is called as the constraint motion. And then the last one is the planetary motion and the Kepler's laws. So planetary motion, Kepler's laws, and the orbits under central forces are all a single topic. So that is actually whenever there is a particle which is subjected to only the central acceleration. The definition of the central acceleration is, suppose if a planet is moving around the sun, let us say Earth is moving around the sun. Now there is a force of attraction between two particles which are having certain masses. So that is Newton's law of gravitation. What it says is, whenever there are two masses, those two masses are always attracted to each other. That is, Earth and sun actually will always be attracted to each other. So as Earth and sun are always attracted to each other, there will be a force of attraction. So that means if you draw, this is the planetary motion and this is the major axis, and let us say this is the sun. Now here actually when the particle is here, that is the Earth is located at this particular location, there is a force of attraction between these two in this direction. Now let us say the Earth is located at here, even still actually the force of attraction between these two is in this direction. Suppose if the Earth is here, even then actually there is a force of attraction between these two in this particular direction. If you notice, whatever may be the location of this Earth, the force of attraction is always towards the sun. Now, if I try to draw the straight lines of all these force lines, so this is one line, and this is one line, and this is one line, and this is one line. Now, if you notice, all the lines are passing through a single point. So, all the lines of force are passing through a single point, wherever may be the location of this Earth. So, that is, if you notice, this point I treat as the pole, and this is always the radial. So this is radial, this is radial, this is radial, this is radial. Maybe positive radial or maybe negative radial. So, but the force of attraction is always radial direction. So if the force of attraction is always radial, and there is no transverse acceleration, the acceleration and the force are always synonyms to each other. So acceleration causes the force. If there is no transverse force, that is the meaning of it. So usually in our dynamics, we treat that as acceleration and force are one and the same except for the mass multiplication. Hence actually the acceleration direction and force directions are one and the same always. So there is no transverse acceleration, meaning there is no transverse force. Acceleration. Then the force is called as central force. That means the force is always in this direction. There is no force in this direction. So this is the directional force. Now to keep the Earth actually to be on safer side, what it will do, it will try to rotate so that actually it will develop certain force which is exactly opposite this that traction force. That force is actually what we call as the centrifugal force. So the centrifugal force is going to be developed by Earth, which is exactly balancing the attraction towards the sun. Hence, actually, these two are going to be balanced out, and then this will try to stay exactly on this particular plane, right? So now it is going to be a planar shape. It is moving on a plane itself, and the force that is going to be attracted is going to be compensated by the centrifugal force, so that this will always move in a specific orbit. So this kind of analysis actually, so there are certain theorems that are associated which we call as the Kepler's laws, and those Kepler's laws actually will state that the particle always moves in a plane, that we mathematically prove it. So that is, suppose if the sun is located here, if the Earth started moving in this one particular plane, now it won't move actually once like this and once like this. So it won't take different shapes of rotation. That is, so if started moving in one plane, throughout the life of the Earth actually it will try to move only in one plane. So it won't take a different plane like this, right? So here actually that we mathematically prove it. That is, every planet actually will try to move in one particular plane only, and that too it will try to rotate in an elliptical orbit with sun as one of its focus. And then actually for every planet actually, if the period of rotation is t and the radial distance is r, then t square by r cube is always constant. So this is one theorem. So for every planet actually this is one theorem, and the other theorems are every planet tries to move only in a plane, and the another theorem is every planet actually will try to rotate about sun in an elliptical orbit with sun as one of its focus. And those are the three theorems stated by the Kepler, and that actually we are going to prove it mathematically in our case. And then that is one particular case if the particle is moving in a planar, moving in a elliptical shape. But particle can even move in a parabolic path also, or it can take any random path even under the central acceleration. So that is even under the central acceleration, meaning suppose if there is a shape like this, and let us say this is the focus of this parabola, and let us say the particle is moving in this direction. So this is the force of attraction. If the particle is here, this is the force of attraction. This is the particle, then this is the force of attraction, and this is the particle, and this is the force of attraction. See this, in all this particular case here also, there is a focus. Focus is nothing but the point of the central force. And then actually the radial forces are always attracted towards each other, but the particle is moving in a path which is of parabolic shape here. So there are different cases. Out of that, one particular case is an elliptical case. Now all such kind of cases, actually the orbit path or the differential equation of this orbit, and the relation between the force and the radial distance, everything actually we are going to calculate in case of central orbits, right? So this is about the briefly the summary of the entire dynamics syllabus, what we are going to discuss in the few classes. Got it? Any questions on this? It won't take much time. Each and every concept is simple. The basics, whatever I have explained today, is sufficient enough to understand all the topics of this dynamics. Any questions, you can let me know now. Fine. Yeah. So that's all for today. Yeah. Thank you.